Can everyone just confirm they can see the screen? Just give me a hands up if you can. Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Okay. So your website, Your Impact, a practical guide to charity websites that work. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat, or we're not a big group, so if you want to come off mute and speak, that's absolutely fine as well. Often when there's a bit of a dialogue, it can help the conversation to go. Um, This is going to be a very practical session. I don't know if anyone's attended these webinars before. Sometimes they're a bit more high level and a bit more looking at fundamental concepts, whereas this one's going to be a lot more tactical. My objective here is to give you a very small handful of things to walk away with that you can implement, whether it's a new website you have, whether you're having a new website built, or whether it's an old website that you hate but just want to improve. Hopefully, there'll be something here that you can take away to make those improvements. So, I'm going to start out just by outlining five common problems that we see, and I'll come on to who we are in a moment, with websites, not just in the third sector, but in general. And you'll be able to tick some of these off, I'm sure. So the first one is relevance. The website is out of date or does not reflect where the organization currently stands. We see this a lot. In fact, often people come to us for a redesign because the website is 5 years old. It doesn't have the right message on there anymore. The team has changed and they can't change the website. So relevance is a big thing. Second one is performance. Website loads slowly, breaks easily, and it's difficult to manage. It's a badly implemented build, difficult to use, using some old outdated technology. It loads very slowly, and basically it performs very badly on a technical level. The third common problem is what I'm calling narrative or story. Now, obviously, in the third sector in particular, a lot of what we do is emotional. People engage, whether you're a volunteer or a supporter or even a funder, there's an emotional connection to the work that you do. And so we don't want to just have websites that have very basic information on them that sound like everybody else in the space. So this is where we see a lot of websites falling down as well. Access. This is the fourth one. Website is difficult to use for people with physical or cognitive disabilities. We know that 1 in 5 people in the UK have some kind of impairment, visual, hearing, motor, something like that, that makes it difficult for them to use this technology. And yet 95%, at least 95% of all websites, not just charity websites, they don't pass accessibility compliance. So that's quite a huge gap, really, when you think about it. And it can be quite difficult to make things accessible across the board. But I think it's worth looking at, in my opinion. And finally, identity. The website does not reflect the organization's unique brand identity. You find this a lot as well. If it's a theme-based website, WordPress theme, or a site like Squarespace, they often look quite similar. They're using templates, and the only thing that's different between your site and someone else's is the logo in the top left. And much of the rest of the website doesn't look or feel like it belongs to you. So those are the five. This covers most. Well, I would say this covers all areas: relevance, performance, narrative, access, and identity. And just so we can get really focused on this session, what I'd like to do is, if you take each of those, just write them down on a piece of paper and score yourself 1 to 5 on where you think you are for each of those areas. So relevance, and then the number, performance, then the number, and so on, and then share in the chat your score out of 25. I'd love to see what just how you feel about your website currently. So this is just an intuitive check, really. We're not asking for any detailed analysis here. Just how do you feel about the relevance of your website, the performance, etc. So if you're up for doing that, we can share it in the chat and just get a feel for how people are feeling about their websites at the moment.
Evolved, yeah, and work. Yeah. Lifestyle, that's moment, the day, what are you most proud of? What's that?
Finn, 14 out of 25. That's not a bad score. 18. Anyone higher than 18? If anyone gets over 20, I'll be impressed. Christine's 20. Excuse me. Okay, so we're mostly in the mid-teens here. So let's get focused now. Out of each of these five problems, which is the one that you feel you most want to solve? It's probably the lowest scoring area. Maybe, might not be. Depends on what your particular personal goals are for your work. But I'd love to know if you drop that in the chat as well, one, two, three, four, or five, which is the one that you see as the most pressing that you want to solve? Because we don't have to take everything on in one go. That's the great thing about the web. It's all very iterative. Relevance and narrative, relevance and performance, narrative, narrative, identity and narrative, performance, access. So relevance and narrative seem like the big things here. Okay. Cool, thank you. If anyone hasn't shared, feel free to drop it in the chat. Yeah, looks like relevance and narrative are the two areas that we want to look at the most. So I'm going to go through each of these now and just talk around a few tips and things that you can implement. If you have any questions as we go, as I said, feel free to drop them in the chat or just speak it out. Come off mute. Before I just get into this, I'm just going to do a quick introduction to myself. So, I co-founded a company called All Things Equal. My co-founder Nick is not on the call today. I am the technical director of the business, and he is more to do with graphic design and user experience. But we've coalesced on a specific goal, which is to basically make the web a better place for service users and supporters. So we don't have a grandiose vision of creating beautiful experiences and websites and things like that. We just think that things can across the board be a little bit better, and the impact of that is going to be far greater than focusing on, one or two large charities or something like that. We want to make things better across the board. We do this. We've got a couple of website services for non-profit organizations. By non-profit, we include in that community interest companies, social enterprises, even purposeful business. Any organization that's putting sort of social improvement or environmental improvement central to its work. First one is our community platform. Now, this is something we've spent a great deal of time working on. It's ideal for small or founder-led organizations who need a simple and accessible website. It's a completely done-for-you service, and that one's priced at $8.95 per year. The reason that we've done this is we've worked with a lot of charities, and we've established really what most of them need from their websites, and we've put that into what we're calling the community platform. Because we've done a lot of work, that's enabled us to drive down the cost of delivery, cost of design, cost of development, and essentially pass those savings on. So what would normally be a 6, 7, 8 grand website, we can do it for this price, which we're very proud of. However, this isn't for everybody. We've also got a scale-up service, which is for more established, larger, busier websites, organizations that have, 20 plus staff, various different teams, lots of moving parts. This is more of a bespoke and sophisticated piece of work, and these start at 15,000. If you want to have a look at any more details on that, you can check out equalthings.com /charity web design, or just go to the homepage and you'll be able to find the information there very easily. Any questions before we crack on? Okay. Cool. So let's start with the relevance one, which was obviously something that people want to focus on. So I'm just going to go through these in a list form. Um, anything that comes, any ideas you have or any questions you have, just note them down. Anything you want to change about your own website as you go through this, make sure you note them down. It'll be great at the end of this to have a small list of things that you're going to want to work on. So, relevance, mission, and messaging. Does the homepage reflect the current purpose and priorities? This is, as we've established in the chat there, quite a big issue. Um, the amount of times people have told me that they don't send people to their website or they don't like being asked about their website because it doesn't reflect who they are and it's out of date and it hasn't been updated. It hasn't been changed in about 3 years. And so they try and avoid sending people to that website. So mission and messaging is kind of a key thing here to consider. Services and programs. So if you have services, if you run programs, are they all up to date? Are they accurate? Are they clearly explained? It can be a bit of it can harm trust in the end user if they see information that isn't up to date, or if there's spelling mistakes and things like that, just basic sloppiness. We see a lot of this as well. Layouts not quite working properly and programs not being, very clearly explained. So people just turn off and, they go elsewhere. Impact data, stories, stats, and outcomes current. Um, for me, this isn't one to necessarily fix. This is more of a mindset of marketing. Anything that you do is essentially around impact, right? So this should be a proactive activity that your organization focuses on over the long term, really keeping stories, stats, and outcomes current because again, why is anybody buying into you? Why is anybody funding you? Why is anybody donating to you? Why is anybody volunteering? I would even suggest that in many cases, service users, it's reassuring for service users to see positive stories and relevant, up-to-date statistics and information about what you're up to. Team and governance. So this is a pretty basic one, but we often see this as well. Staff, trustees, and contact details still correct. Um, Often people reach out to us about a new website inquiry, and the person who's reaching out, even if they've been there for 3 or 4 months, aren't on the website. Sorry, Christine, did you have a question? Maybe it was a sneeze. Okay, cool. News and content freshness. So does the site look alive? Recent posts, updates, events. I was on one the other day and they had a news section on the homepage, and the last post was from 2022. I'm not saying that that's terrible, but at the same time, it doesn't really instill confidence that the organization's up to anything, right? I can look past that. I'm a web developer. I see this stuff all the time, but a service user or a funder, it doesn't really look like you're up to much. So just make a casual effort to keep this content fresh. So that's what I've got on relevance. So there's going to be, probably a big piece of work just in this alone, depending on the state of your current website. But as I said, just have a think about which areas you want to focus on. There's some quick wins here, I'm sure, for everyone. You don't need to take all of this on in one go. Performance. Now, this is the more technical side of things, so it's a little bit uninteresting for many people, but at the same time, it's important. So page speed, large images, bloated plugins, unnecessary scripts, and no caching. So that's quite a lot of technical jargon there. But what it basically says is a lot of technical builds of websites ensure that they are very horrible to load and they take quite a while to appear, especially on mobile devices. We see this quite a lot. The technical foundation. So, like, where is it hosted? What company is being used? Is it reputable? What's the actual platform? Is it WordPress? Is it something else? Is there security certificate on the domain ensuring that it doesn't flag any security issues in Google or the web browser when you visit it? Content structure is content organized in a way that avoids duplication and chaos. Now, this is obviously a very big one because websites grow organically over time, and unless there's somebody looking after that website with a process document on how to maintain that website, quite often we'll see that pages just get added randomly in often the wrong places. Um, Often content gets updated without much thought about how it sits in the wider context. Stuff doesn't get added to main menu navigations or it gets missed off. We see a lot of structural issues as well, and this affects the performance not just from an SEO perspective or a page speed perspective, but also from a user perspective as well. Maintenance workflow. Who updates the site? How often and how easy is it? If you're using an old CMS or one that's been built by a developer who hasn't really thought about the editorial experience, which is most web developers in my experience, you will end up with something that kind of works, but you're not really sure how. And that can be quite quite a morale problem actually. If you don't know how to update your own website, you probably won't bother. And reliability, broken links, 404 pages, forms that don't work, hosting that sort of dies, and this again, it's very common on the web because websites are living, breathing things. You link to pages external to your website, they disappear or they move, all of a sudden you're linking to broken pages. And so it's worth just checking in on these things every now and again to make sure that stuff is still working. So what I will do on this call, if someone's up for it, is if you want to drop your website link into the chat, we will do a live website speed check, and I'll give you a few pointers on the call if anyone's up for that. And this obviously isn't a personal criticism, but hopefully it will be helpful. Okay, Debbie's put her web address in there, so I'll stop sharing. I'll just load that up. Bear with me. I'm just going to check that there's something to show here. Okay, so has anyone used Google's Page Speed Insights before? Or has anyone not used it? Okay, so this is a free service that Google offer because page loading speed is such a critical factor when it comes to search engine optimization. You have to make sure that your page goes quite well. So I've put the web address in here, and what this is telling us. Now we can forget about the accessibility best practices in SEO because that's kind of by the by. What we're most interested in at this point is your performance, i.e., how quickly the page loads. Now, 69 out of 100, Debbie isn't too bad. We've seen a lot worse. However, it's still in that middle range, and it's in the middle of the middle range. So ideally you want to get it to plus 90. And what it's basically saying is this first contentful paint in its lovely Google jargon basically means how long does the user have to wait until something appears. Now this is on mobile and it's saying nearly 3 seconds. For nearly 3 seconds, they will see just a white screen until it starts to appear. And then you can see the page starts to kind of build itself. And that might not sound like a lot. That might not sound like a lot, and it might not seem like much at all. But this is something that Google does consider when it comes to ranking. Also, if you've got a slightly older mobile phone, or if you are on a dodgy 3G connection, for example, it might take a lot longer than that. So anything we can do to just sort of improve the performance really has a positive impact. And the stuff in here is usually around what's called render blocking requests, which essentially means that stuff is trying to load before the page can show. And what we do to get around that is we defer it. We say this doesn't need to be here right now. Just show the main content and then bring in all the colors and the style and all that kind of stuff as necessary. So that's how it's performing on mobile. Desktop should be a bit better. Yeah, so you're at 90 on desktop. So that's some good work. Cool. Okay. I won't do another one, but if you want to have a look, just Google, just search Google for page speed insights or something and run your own site through that and see what you get. In the meantime, I'll carry on with presentation. So the next piece is narrative. The website lacks a compelling story that creates an emotional connection and builds trust. So, clarity of message. Can someone grasp what you do and who for in 6 to 8 seconds? Sounds like such a simple request, but at the same time, what we often find is the larger an organization gets, the more people involved, the older it is, the more services they have, the more voices in that organization. They all just pile on and they all want their piece of real estate on the homepage. And as a result of that, you end up with a real mixed message that doesn't really talk to any particular audience. So, who is your audience primarily? I know you'll all have multiple audiences, but who's the primary one? And what is it you do for them? This is really, the more you can get to the essence of that, the more high performing that homepage and website is going to be. Human stories, real people, real outcomes told concisely and emotionally. Now, this is obviously an art in itself. This is just another job that you've got as a charity member of staff. Like, there's so much that goes into all of this. But yeah, telling the stories of beneficiaries, of anyone involved in the organization, really, even if you don't feel it's traditionally an emotional topic or an area that you work in, um, bringing in some emotionality into that can, really benefit the user because it helps people to feel what you're about more than just telling them. We tend to respond to an emotional, and we respond to emotions more than just sort of thoughts and statistics and stuff like that. It's also an opportunity to get a lot more clear on your specific uniqueness as an organization. Um, you know, for example, homelessness. There are hundreds of charities working in the homelessness space, but what makes your origin story different? What makes your impact different and worth listening to? Impact proof, testimonial stats before, after stories and photos. I won't labor the point there. It's very similar to the stories. Tone of voice. Now, this might not be applicable. I've put here warm, human, consistent, audience centered. You might say you're a medical research organization, and therefore we want to be a bit, we want to be a bit colder, maybe, or a bit more professional, or however you describe it. Whatever your tone of voice is, just make sure that it threads throughout everything you do, not just the website, but also, annual reports, emails, sequences, campaigns, appeals, those sort of things. You should have that consistency because people hop around a lot. They'll go from your Instagram page to your TikTok page to your website. They might see a newsletter. If they've all got completely different tones of voice, it's like having a different brand identity. It's going to look and feel different, and they're not really going to be sure why. So you don't have the coherent narrative, starts to harm trust. And calls to action. Do stories lead people towards meaningful action? So, stories, and I did a whole webinar about this earlier in the year. Stories need to close the emotional loop. They open the emotional loop and then they close it again. So they make someone feel something and then they give people something to do with that emotion. It's not like a like it's not like watching a film where there isn't a conclusion necessarily. It's about telling a story that leads towards a meaningful action. So, any volunteers to test clarity of message? I'll just open up a browser and look at someone's website, and we can all pile on if you're up for that. We got here. The first one to come through there is integrate Tina. So I'm going to open this and okay, this one's quite a good one. So we can have a look at this. Okay, right. So this is Tina's website, integrate. Who do we think this is for? What do we think that they do?
For
What's
young
everyone's
people, I
initial
think.
thoughts on this? Sorry, Maruf?
For young people, I think.
Young people. Yeah. Before I scroll down, I'd love to, yeah, college age young people. People of all races. Not sure what they do though. Obviously, there's a big arrow, and it's customary to sort of scroll down when you land on a website, so I am going to do that. But I do like to look at this sort of above the fold content. So it's called above the fold before you scroll down. Sports. Okay, so let's go and have a look. Empowering young people. There we go. So this here, I'm guessing it's just because of some of the imagery that we're seeing and possibly the style of it as well. Okay, empowering young people to lead change. Does anyone have any more thoughts on this? Does this do its job as a homepage? Does this communicate well? Christine says it's making me feel dizzy. Maybe that's just my erratic scrolling. The impact section feels strong and up to date. Yeah. Interestingly, I kind of scrolled past this. It flows well. Tina, hopefully this is useful to you.
Yes, I would like to know if anyone understands what we do by looking at this, because this is something I would like to improve.
Great. Okay. What do they do?
Too much to type. It's about supporting young people, yes, but I'm not entirely sure in what sense. And as a not young person, what would I am I what would my role be in this? Um, so I'm so it looks brilliant, but I'm not entirely sure what my role would be or quite how. I'm also curious if the conference has been or not, because it says 2020 news.
Very good, yeah. Yeah, I kind of echo that, Debbie. I think that it looks great. It's very clear who it's for. Um, uh, this here, I think, is the key. It would be great to see that a lot bigger though, and maybe peppered throughout the page. Just like you have to reinforce the message over and over again throughout the website, really. because people don't just land on home pages anymore. They're coming from all kinds of places.
Yeah, thank you very much for your feedback. It's exactly what I thought. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Tina.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll come on to point 4 now. So point 4 is access. The website is difficult to use for people with physical or cognitive disabilities. Now, I think only one person maybe mentioned access as an issue. So hopefully this is going to be useful, or at least add some clarity to what we mean by access. This is probably one of the most difficult ones to actually action as well, because access is very often very technical. It kind of goes to the heart of the build of the website. But also accessibility compliance is it's not the end of the story, it's actually the start. The real way to determine how accessible your website is by getting real people with real conditions to use it and then getting their feedback. So first point here is navigation, clear menus, predictable structure, logical headings. Like, we're not reinventing the wheel. I audited a website the other week and it had the main menu along the bottom. And honestly, it took me about 30 seconds to find that. And I only stumbled across it by accident because, you're just not used to seeing that, right? So let's try and keep things where they should be. I'm all up for innovation, but, at the same time, we do want people to take action on these websites, right? Contrast and readability, text size, color, contrast, and spacing. Contrasting is something we see quite often. You'll be surprised at how much contrast there actually has to be between the text and the background color for it to pass accessibility compliance. Even when we can see it, if you are of perfect vision, other people may not be able to. Debbie, we were told not to use read more links. They don't suit people who use auto readers. Yeah, the best practice is to actually label what page the user is going to in the link rather than having read more, because if you have, imagine, 3 sections and they all say read more, the context is lost because it's just the text read more. But if you have read more about this, read more about that, then it tells the user with a screen reader this is exactly what this link is going to be pointing to. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you would link to the section. So if you have a section on your homepage about services, for example, and then you list a bit of information about that, instead of having read more, you would say view our services. So that's very clear then to the user. Right, that's where we're going next. Keyboard accessibility. Can users navigate without a mouse? You can easily tell this by hitting the tab key when you hit a website, and it should cycle through all of the links on the page as you hit that tab, and then you can either hit the spacebar or return, and it will load the link. Alt text and media descriptions, another big one, but missed so often. We should describe every image that's on the page. Just say what's in that image so that someone who can't see it at least can know what's in the picture. And cognitive load as well. Simplicity, clear language, avoiding overwhelming layouts. I've been on websites and I don't have, as far as I'm aware, any problems, and I can sometimes feel very overwhelmed at what I'm looking at. We want to reduce the cognitive load as much as possible. Don't have lots of content jammed together, create nice spacing between sections. Keep the language simple as well. The amount of times we see not just jargon, but unnecessarily big words. We're like the I think sometimes people correlate education with intelligence, and they want only intelligent people to look at their website, or they only want to feel intelligent and look like they've got like clever content. But actually, someone can be very intelligent, but just not hugely well educated, and therefore the language needs to be simple for them, or they could be dyslexic or something like that, in which case we just keep it as simple as possible, simple and direct. So we'll do a quick accessibility compliance check. So if anyone wants to drop their link in the chat, I will do that as well and give you some pointers on what to look for from an accessibility perspective. Okay, we'll go with fins.envision.org.uk. Okay, bear with me. Finn, there's no problems at all. Well, let me just show you. So there's something called Wave, which is basically a oh, hold on. That doesn't seem to work. Web accessibility evaluation tools. You can run your website through this. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this, but it will basically look at the code of the website and just try and tell you how compliant that website is in terms of its accessibility. Um, I'm, it's not super accurate, so I'm just gonna run it through here. I also have a browser plugin as well, so I've just done the browser plugin here. It's actually telling me that you have pretty much no errors or no contrast errors. So that's reassuring. However, when I run it through here, that's odd. It says we do have issues. So just for the purpose of this, let's err on the side of caution and we'll look at the one with issues. Okay. So this is saying there are 6 errors. And what it's saying is, as we said earlier, missing alternative text. So some of the images don't have a descriptive label to them. Same here. Where are we? Yeah, so we can see we've got this image here, and yeah, it should have something called an alt attribute, ALT equals, and then a description of the image. So the good news about anything with accessibility compliance is it's very easy to fix. We also have apparently some contrasting issues here. So this is saying that that red does not sit well on the blue background there, where it says learn more. Uh, you know, I can obviously read that no problem. Some people may not be able to. Um, yeah, it's worth saying that again, compliance is just the start of the story. You would really need to test this with real people to actually know, because this is just essentially a like a machine test. It's basically saying we don't think that this color works on this background. Whether it does or it doesn't, that remains to be tested. And then you just have a few alerts in here around headings. Okay. Yeah. So this is basically saying where you've got our values, it should probably be a heading rather than a paragraph in the markup in the code. Again, it's not something to lose sleep over, but if you did want this to come out with far fewer errors and alerts, then you'd probably just go in and change some of this code. Okay, I would do another one, but we're a bit short on time. So was that, Finn, was that helpful?
No, yeah, that's really useful. And a lot of the stuff that I kind of thought I'd very sometimes do skip the text for a photo, if I'm completely honest,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
probably not a good thing to do. Especially when I'm uploading lots of photos, I tend to skip past that. So I will make sure to hold myself to doing that more often.
Yeah,
Thank
we,
you very
we
much.
all do that from time to time. I'm hoping that AI is going to come to the rescue with this one and at least populate what it thinks an image contains, because it's very good at recognizing this stuff now. So in a way, we should really be able to automate this in the future. Another thing to consider is brand identity. I'll come on to that in a moment, but sometimes when people have a brand identity built over here and a website built over here, when that gets put onto the website, those colors aren't accessible. So from day one, you want to make sure that any brand stuff that you do is accessible as well. And then just finally, we'll come on to the last slide here, which is on what I just said there, identity. So the website does not properly reflect the organization's unique brand identity. So yeah, visual consistency, colors, typography, spacing, image styles. Yeah, don't need to go too much into this, but the look and feel, like, is it correct? Brand personality, does the website feel like your organization? You know, I know we're not in the business to consumer space. We're not Adidas or something like that. But at the same time, we do every organization comprised of people with beliefs and values. They have beliefs and values, so that should find its way, in my opinion, into your brand, into your tone of voice, into your messaging, and ultimately into the website. Photography, real authentic imagery representing your community. There's a big debate at the moment about whether charities should use AI generated imagery. I'm cautiously, well, I'm on the fence with that really, because to me, authentic doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a real person in a real photograph taken by a real photographer. It just means, does it authentically resonate with the viewer, with the person looking at it? Do they feel something? If so, that's where the authenticity comes through, in my opinion. So it's just giving some thought about this kind of stuff rather than using overused stock photography or irrelevant imagery. Messaging style, our words and tone aligned with brand values. Differentiation, what makes you distinct from similar organizations? So this is quite a big one. Um, a lot of people don't like to really lean into who they are and use that in marketing, but actually this is how we connect with others, by being who we are. And every organization, it has a brand, it has a set of beliefs. The people that run and govern that organization are there for a reason. So what is it that makes you different? What is it that makes you distinct? And how can you use that to set you apart from the many others who are delivering similar services, perhaps in the same area as you? So those are all the five key areas. Relevance, performance, narrative, access, and identity. I would love to get, if anyone's up for sharing, either on the mic or just in the chat, what your key reflections and actions are from what we've talked about today. Maruf, does the website help to fix the errors for free? Which was that, the accessibility one? No, it just gives you a report of what's broken. So it's not super helpful. Christine, the last slide again. Th Was it this one, the identity one? Joanne, we'll be reviewing our accessibility score to make sure there is nothing, sorry, yeah, to make sure there's nothing we can improve, and monitoring this in our monthly meetings. Brilliant. Yeah. That's what we need, really. Someone to take ownership internally of the website and just check in with it every few weeks. Because otherwise it just gets put on the shelf, doesn't it? Us two and the speed score. Yeah. Eager to revisit content structure and how our narrative flows throughout. That's great. Identity is the main thing for our website, working on it. Cool, cool. Good, good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, because these projects are so amorphous and large and ongoing at times, it can be really difficult to know really where your point of focus should be. And hopefully this has been helpful today. Just before we move on, I just want to give some what I'm calling points of view, just perspectives of how to think about your website. This has helped me. It's more of a mindset than a tactical bit. Lizzie says we're trying to improve our whole website, and in the new year we will be having a refresh. So this has been really helpful to add points of focus. Glad to hear it. So just before we go, then, so I would say, and I alluded to this a moment ago, websites are always a work in progress. They're never done. And I think this is why they often get sidelined because, it's not an event that has a time-bound beginning and an end. It's not a campaign that, has a specific outcome attached to it. It's a website, which is kind of difficult to interpret. So it isn't ever done, and it's always going to be this work in progress. One helpful thing that I use when thinking about websites is thinking about them in terms of contribution rather than attribution. So again, if you have a campaign, you can attribute, oh, this is going to cost us £500 to run this event or this campaign. Our target is £5,000. There's your attribution. With websites, it doesn't work like that, or very rarely does it work like that, unless you have an input-output equation, i.e., we're putting this many ads to send people to the website, and this is how many donations are going to come out the other side. It's not that clear cut for most charities, but what the website does do is it contributes to all the areas. It contributes to trust, it contributes to income, all the different positives that contribute towards the organization's success. That's what the website is there for. So it's more about contribution than attribution, if that makes sense. And this can be good as well for selling this as an internal thing as well for finance directors or trustees who want to hold the purse string and not invest in this area because they want a simple input output equation. They're not going to get that. So you say it's actually about contribution rather than attribution. When it comes to quality, just try your best. Just don't pursue perfection. I've been involved in web projects in the past where, the deadline has sailed past by months because people have been trying to get it absolutely spot on in every area. Actually, just bring it to a level where we're happy enough in most areas and then launch, and then you can improve from there. Remain user-centric at all times. So this is a really important mindset shift. A lot of the times, websites are very inward-looking. So there's lots of competing internal voices, and they all make their way onto the homepage, and actually no one's thinking about the end user. And so we always want to be thinking about what does the end user need from this website? What is their goal? How can we best serve them? And I've found that when you do that, if you get in a room with, if say there's 10 people in the organization and they all want to have a say in how the website looks and sounds and feels, if you remain user-centric, it draws back all of that conflicting ego that so often capsizes these sort of projects. And finally, it works if you work it. So all the stuff that I talked about today, taking ownership of the website, chipping away at it, remaining user-centric, doing your best, all of this stuff, ultimately, it does lead to a website that will contribute massively to the work that you do. Just before we go, I don't know if anyone here knows, well, Maruf does because he's come along to one of them, but every other Tuesday, and we're going to be starting this in the new year, actually, we're taking a break for Christmas, but every other Tuesday we run free digital drop-in sessions. You basically come along anywhere up to an hour. There's usually 3 to 6 people in the room. Just bring questions, challenges, anything you're working on at the moment, network with others. I and my business partner will do our best to answer any questions that you have around digital marketing. Often people in the room know better than we do because they've been involved in a project that someone else has a question on. So that's great. And yeah, you walk away feeling a bit lighter with a handful of things to move forward. So you can check out the website there for the next one. Cool. So there are my slides. Has anyone got any questions? Was that helpful? Great. Good, good, good. Glad to see it. Awesome. So I'm going to put this up onto YouTube so you can have another look at it at any point. Hopefully there's some stuff that you'll be able to take forward, and I'd love to hear in the new year if anybody wants to get back to me with anything they've implemented. I'd love to hear the impact of anything we've talked about today has on the work that you do. The YouTube link will be in the email, Maruf, so I'll send that out either later on today or tomorrow. In the meantime, thank you everybody for coming along today. It's good to see you. Have a great Christmas and a good New Year, and hopefully see you all again soon. Bye bye.